Welcome back to Today, we're looking at 4 Washington quarter dollars from a very important period in US coin history. These coins may look worn, scratched, dark, or heavily circulated, but certain rare examples can attract serious collector attention because of unusual mint errors, die varieties, and strong demand. You'll learn what makes these quarters interesting, which details are worth checking, and why some examples can reach impressive values. Stay with me because the final coin has the strongest story of them all. Now let's start with the first coin. The first coin takes us back to 1965, and this year matters more than many people realize, because it marked a major change in the Washington Quarter series. The 1965 Washington Quarter with no mint mark may look ordinary today, especially in heavily circulated condition with deep pocket wear and surface scuffs, but its history makes it a coin worth examining carefully. This was the first year regular Washington quarters changed from the old silver composition to copper-nickel clad. So when you hold one, you are holding a small piece of an important change in American money. During the early 1960s, silver prices were rising, and people were pulling silver coins out of circulation. The United States needed a new way to produce enough quarters for everyday use, so the 1965 quarter was made with outer layers of copper and nickel bonded to a copper center. Look at the edge of one today, and you can often see that copper-colored core. On the front is George Washington, with Liberty above his portrait and the date 1965 below. The reverse carries the classic American eagle with its wings spread wide, the familiar design used long before state quarters appeared. Now there is another detail beginners sometimes misunderstand: the missing mint mark. A regular 1965 quarter is supposed to have no mint mark. During this period, mint marks were removed from circulating US coins as the mint tried to reduce collecting pressure during the national coin shortage. So seeing no letter beside the date does not automatically mean you have an error. The real excitement begins when other unusual features appear. The coin we are discussing has been heavily circulated, with extensive pocket wear and surface scuffs. Washington's hair may look smooth, some feathers on the eagle may be weak, and the open areas can show many small marks. Those signs usually come from years of normal use, not from the mint. Still, do not judge the coin only by how worn it looks, because a genuine mint-made error can sometimes remain visible even after years in circulation. Collectors may inspect 1965 quarters for real double-die features, unusual strikes, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, or other production errors. One especially important thing to understand is the difference between damage and a mint error. Random scratches, dents, dark spots, and worn rims normally happened after the coin left the mint. A true mint error was created during production, and that difference can have a major effect on collector interest. There is also a famous category connected with 1965 quarters that can make experienced collectors pay very close attention. Rare examples struck on the older silver composition instead of the normal clad planchet. These are not ordinary 1965 quarters, and authentication is extremely important. A coin should never be called a valuable silver error just because its edge looks unusual or because someone online says it is rare. Weight, metal composition, and professional examination can help determine what the coin actually is. And this is where the value story becomes exciting. A normal heavily worn 1965 quarter should not be confused with a rare error, but genuine high-grade pieces and important authenticated errors can be worth much more. Exceptional 1965 error coins, especially major and properly certified pieces, can move into thousands of dollars, with the exact price depending on the type of error, condition, rarity, and demand. That is a huge difference for a coin that originally represented only 25 cents. And it explains why collectors still examine this date more than 60 years later. If you believe you have something unusual, do not clean the coin. That dark color or old surface may be tempting to remove, but polishing, chemicals, or hard rubbing can leave permanent damage and hurt collector value. Hold the quarter by its edges, place it in a safe coin holder, and compare its features with known genuine examples. For a potentially important error, professional authentication from a respected grading service, such as PCGS or NGC, can help establish exactly what you own. And when it comes time to sell, do not rush. A genuinely unusual 1965 quarter may attract different offers depending on where it is sold. A respected coin dealer can give you an opinion, while certified rare errors may receive stronger attention through established numismatic auctions where serious collectors can compete for the same coin. That is what makes the 1965 Washington quarter so interesting. Not every example is a treasure, but the year itself represents a major turning point, and the right authenticated error can completely change the story. So before an old 1965 quarter disappears back into circulation, check it carefully, protect it, and remember that the smallest unusual detail may be the reason another collector wants to see it. Now, let's move on to the next coin. The next quarter takes us into 1966, but instead of thinking about this coin as simple pocket change, think about the strange period in American coin history when it was created. The country was still dealing with the effects of a serious coin shortage, silver had recently disappeared from regular quarters, and the United States Mint was producing huge numbers of new clad coins to keep money moving through stores and banks. Sitting right in the middle of that change was the 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark, and even a circulated example with uniform pocket wear and surface scratches can be interesting to study. By 1966, Americans were becoming familiar with the newer copper-nickel quarters. The coin had a copper center with copper-nickel outer layers, rather than the 90% silver composition used on regular Washington quarters through 1964. From the front, however, the design still looked familiar. George Washington appears in the center, Liberty curves above his head, In God We Trust sits beside the portrait, and 1966 appears below. Turn the coin over, and you find the classic eagle with spread wings, along with United States of America, EPLURBUSUNUM, and quarter dollar. Now look closely around the date and Washington's portrait. You will notice something missing. There is no mint mark, but that is normal for this coin. During this unusual period, the US Mint temporarily removed mint marks from circulating coins. So a 1966 quarter without a mint mark is not automatically a rare error. This is an important detail because online listings sometimes make ordinary no mint mark coins sound much rarer than they really are. The condition of our example tells another story. Uniform pocket wear means the coin has been used for many years, while surface scratches may have come from contact with keys, other coins, counters, vending machines, and cash drawers. Washington's hair and cheek can lose sharp detail, while the eagle's breast and feathers may appear smoother. These marks are normally circulation wear, and collectors separate them from mistakes that happen during production. This is where careful searching becomes interesting, because a worn quarter can still carry a genuine mint-made feature. Collectors may examine 1966 quarters for double die characteristics, die cracks, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, or other unusual striking errors. The important question is always the same. Did the unusual feature happen inside the mint, or did somebody damage the coin later? A random scratch is damage. A true double die or major striking mistake can be collectible. There is another reason serious collectors study this year. Because 1966 belongs to the early clad period, well-preserved examples with strong strikes can be much harder to locate than worn pieces pulled from circulation. Collectors who build high-grade Washington quarter sets often care about tiny differences in surface quality, strike strength, and overall eye appeal. That means two coins carrying the same 1966 date can receive completely different levels of attention. And when a truly important authenticated error enters the picture, the value can rise dramatically. Exceptional 1966 Washington quarter errors and unusually desirable certified pieces can reach several $1,000s, depending on exactly what makes the coin rare, its grade, and how strongly collectors compete for it. A figure such as $3,000 to $5,000 or more would require a genuinely special example, not simply a normal worn 1966 quarter, so professional authentication becomes extremely important before believing a large value claim. If your quarter seems unusual, resist one common mistake. Do not clean it. Scrubbing away old color or polishing the surface may make the coin brighter, but it can also leave permanent marks that collectors dislike. Keep the coin dry, hold it carefully by the edge, and place it inside a proper holder. If the suspected error looks important, services such as PCGS or NGC can examine and authenticate it. Selling should also be done carefully. Instead of accepting the first price someone offers, identify the variety or error first, then compare recent sales and speak with a trusted coin dealer. A certified major error may also be suitable for a specialist auction, where collectors who understand the feature can compete for it. That is the real excitement behind the 1966 Washington quarter. The ordinary coins tell the story of a changing American currency system, while the rare mistakes can tell a completely different story. A small production detail, overlooked for decades, could be the difference between everyday pocket change and a coin serious collectors want to own. But the next coin is where things get even more interesting. By 1967, something interesting was happening in American pockets. The bright silver quarters that people had known for years were becoming harder to find, while the newer clad coins were taking their place. This 1967 Washington quarter belongs to that changing world, and the example we're looking at has clearly lived through it. Heavy pocket wear has softened the design, surface scuffs cover parts of the coin, and the original shine is mostly gone. Yet those signs of age do not tell us everything, because the details created before this coin ever entered circulation are what can make collectors stop and look closer. More than 1.5 billion Washington quarters were produced for the 1967 date, so the date itself is not rare. That enormous production makes sense when you remember what the mint was trying to accomplish. America needed huge quantities of coins after the shortage of the mid-1960s, and quarters had to reach banks and businesses quickly. This is also why 1967 is such an interesting year for error hunters. When coins are being produced in enormous numbers, collectors know it is worth studying the pieces that escaped with unusual mint-made features. The coin still carries John Flanagan's familiar Washington design. On the front, Washington faces left, surrounded by Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1967. On the back, the American eagle spreads its wings above a wreath. Underneath that familiar silver-colored surface is a copper center, with copper-nickel layers bonded to the outside. If you look carefully at the edge of a normal circulated example, that copper center can often be seen. There is no mint mark on a regular 1967 quarter, and here is the key point. That missing letter is not an error. Mint marks were intentionally left off circulating US coins during this period. So rather than getting excited simply because the coin has no mint mark, experienced collectors turn their attention somewhere else. They study the strike, the lettering, the edge, and any feature that looks as though it was created while the coin was being made. That is where this search becomes almost like detective work. Suppose you notice what looks like a second image around part of the lettering. Is it true die doubling, or has circulation simply pushed and damaged the metal? Perhaps part of the rim looks incomplete. Was the planchet genuinely clipped before striking, or was the edge damaged years later? Maybe a crack-like raised line crosses part of the design. If that line came from a damaged die, it could be collectible. Every clue has to be judged carefully. Other possibilities include off-center strikes, strike-through errors, and unusual planchet problems. These are completely different from the pocket wear and surface scuffs on our example. Wear happened slowly after the quarter entered everyday life, while a real mint error was born with the coin. That difference is what collectors are paying for. Condition creates another interesting challenge with this date. A heavily used 1967 quarter may have smooth hair detail on Washington and weaker feathers on the eagle, while a carefully preserved example can show much stronger surfaces and original luster. Collectors building advanced Washington quarter sets often compete for exceptional certified coins, especially when the quality rises far above the pieces normally found in old change. Now imagine finding a strange 1967 quarter in a family collection. Your first reaction might be to make it shiny again. Don't. Never polish or scrub a potentially collectible coin. Cleaning can leave hairline scratches and remove the original surface that experienced buyers want to see. Protect it in a suitable holder and let a knowledgeable dealer or grading service examine the unusual feature first. If the feature proves important, Services such as PCGS or NGC can help authenticate and grade the coin. Once you know exactly what you own, you can compare auction records and speak with established coin dealers. For a genuinely rare certified error or an exceptional high-grade example, a specialist auction can place the coin in front of collectors who understand why it matters. And now comes the number everyone wants to hear. Extraordinary 1967 Washington quarters with the right combination of rarity, error type, certification, and condition can enter the several $1,000s range, with exceptional pieces potentially reaching around $5,000 to $8,000 or more, depending on the exact coin and the market. That does not mean every worn 1967 quarter carries that value. The money is tied to the rare feature or exceptional quality, not simply the date. Still, think about the possibility. More than 1 billion quarters were made for this date, millions were spent without a second glance, and somewhere among them were unusual pieces that did not come out exactly like the rest. Finding one means noticing the tiny clue that countless other people may have missed. And this final coin might surprise you the most. And now we come to the final quarter, the 1968 Washington quarter without a mint mark, and this coin deserves a different kind of attention. Because by 1968, the United States was moving beyond the great coin shortage, mint marks were returning to American coinage, and the Washington Quarter series was entering another chapter. Yet this heavily circulated example looks as if it has traveled through that history itself. Its surface has lost much of its original brightness, years of handling have softened the details, and dark shading appears across parts of the coin. To someone spending loose change, it may look tired and unimportant. To a collector, however, the first question is much more interesting. Why does this 1968 quarter have no mint mark? The answer begins in Philadelphia. Regular 1968 quarters struck there were produced without a mint mark, so the missing letter alone does not make this coin an error. This is important because a no mint mark quarter can sound rare when described online, even though that feature may be completely normal. The real search begins only after you understand what the coin is supposed to look like. Once you know the normal design, unusual details become much easier to recognize. On the front, George Washington faces left, with Liberty above, In God We Trust beside his portrait, and 1968 below. The reverse carries the familiar eagle with its wings spread wide above a wreath. The coin uses the copper-nickel clad composition introduced only a few years earlier, with a copper center surrounded by outer layers of copper and nickel. That composition was created for hard everyday use, and this particular quarter appears to have done exactly that. Heavy circulation has created smooth areas across Washington's portrait, while small scratches and marks may appear in the open fields. The darker shade is also something that needs careful judgment. Color alone does not create rarity. Dark toning can develop from storage and environmental exposure, while grime and other surface changes can happen after years of use. A collector wants to separate all of that later damage from anything unusual that happened when the quarter was actually struck. And this is where the suspense begins to build. A collector examining a 1968 quarter may look for true double die characteristics, unusual die cracks, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, strike-through errors, or other genuine production mistakes. Sometimes a strange-looking area turns out to be nothing more than circulation damage. Other times, an unusual feature has the correct shape and characteristics of a real mint error. And suddenly, an old quarter becomes much more interesting. Imagine discovering one in an old box left by a relative. You notice the dark surface first, then the date. You turn the quarter under lamp and see something unusual near the lettering. You do not know whether it matters yet, but you know enough not to rub it clean. That one decision can be important. Polishing a coin can leave tiny scratches and destroy the original surface collectors want to examine, so even when a quarter looks dirty or dark, leave it alone. Instead, protect it by holding it around the edge and placing it in a proper coin holder. If the strange feature appears to be genuine, compare it carefully with trusted references and consider professional authentication through PCGS or NGC. For an important error, certification can make the difference between trying to convince someone that a coin is special and having a recognized grading service confirm exactly what it is. Only after that should selling become the main question. An unusual certified quarter can be shown to experienced coin dealers, while a genuinely important era may be better suited to a specialist auction where several collectors can compete for it. Do not build your asking price around an enormous online listing alone. A seller can ask almost any amount. Completed sales and properly identified coins provide much better evidence of real collector demand. Now we reach the moment that makes searching these old quarters so exciting. A heavily circulated 1968 quarter does not become valuable simply because it is dark or because Philadelphia left off the mint mark. But when the right coin carries a major authenticated mint era, strong rarity, and enough collector demand, the value can move into an entirely different category. Exceptional era pieces can potentially command several $1,000s, and a truly dramatic, professionally authenticated example could push toward the $8,000 to $10,000 range or beyond, depending on the exact era and what serious buyers are willing to pay. Think about that for a moment, not because every 1968 quarter is suddenly worth thousands, but because one tiny detail created during production can completely change how collectors see the same 25-cent coin. A quarter may spend decades being ignored, become dark and worn from ordinary life, and then finally reach someone who notices the feature everybody before them missed. That feeling of discovery is the real reason collectors keep searching. Before we finish, remember a few simple rules when checking your own coins. Never scrub, polish, or chemically clean a quarter that may be collectible. Keep promising pieces dry and protected in coin-safe holders and handle them by their edges. Learn the difference between circulation damage and genuine mint errors before spending money on gradding. If you believe you have an important variety or error, professional services such as PCGS or NGC can help authenticate it, and established coin dealers or specialist auctions can help you understand the selling market. Today we traveled through 4 closely connected years, from the historic first clad quarter of 1965 through 1966 and 1967, and finally into 1968. Each coin reminds us of the same important lesson, but in a different way. An old quarter does not need to look beautiful to deserve attention, and a missing mint mark or dark surface alone does not make it rare. The real treasure is found in the details, especially genuine errors, unusual varieties, exceptional condition, and proper authentication. So the next time someone hands you an old Washington quarter, don't be too quick to spend it. Check the year, study the surfaces, examine the strike, and look closely at anything that seems unusual. Most will simply be interesting pieces of American history, but every collector keeps searching for that rare exception. One of these coins could be hiding in your home right now.